I think I just want to briefly take a couple of minutes to set the context and just explain the flow of events before I invite Ayo to come and make a presentation. I think we all agree that Nigeria, with its significant economic potential, faces persistent gender inequalities that hinder its overall development. And closing these gender gaps is not only a matter of social justice, but also a prerequisite for sustainable development, inclusive growth, and poverty reduction. So, in the course of today's discussion, we will hear new findings from the World Bank's Africa Gender Innovation Lab and the Social Protection and Jobs units, highlighting the crucial role of social safety nets that can play in alleviating poverty among women. In terms of the flow of the event and the session, we'll first start with an opening presentation by Ayo, who will provide a look into the rigorous and evidence-based programming from Nigeria and across sub-Saharan Africa that supports women to exit poverty. After his remarks, we'll move on to the distinguished panel discussion participants to hear their perspectives on the constraints women face and solutions to help them improve their quality of life and livelihoods. So without further ado, Ayo, please come and make your presentation. You've got 5 minutes to do that. Thank you.
How do I move?
And as Ayo sets up his presentation, one important clarification: I'm not Taimur Samad. If people are seeing the brochure and getting confused between why the guy sitting here's face is so different, so my name is Vinay Vutukuru. I'm the program leader for sustainable development at the World Bank, and I'm filling in for Taimur Samad. Over to you, Ayo.
All right, thank you so much, Timon. Vinay, thank you for the clarification. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate your presence here at this panel. My name is Ayodele Fashogbo. I'm an economist with the World Bank. Today, I will provide a very short lightning talk about our work in Nigeria and a few of our work in the region, in Sub-Saharan Africa region. How we've been able to contribute to generating evidence on how we can promote women economic empowerment. From the World Bank Nigeria Gender Innovation Lab, what we do, we work to figure out what works to promote women economic empowerment and use the evidence to shape policy in Nigeria, especially policy around women economic empowerment and economic growth. And in Nigeria, we do this in 3 ways. One, we understand, we do studies to understand the landscape in terms of gender gaps and the drivers of the gender gaps. Then the second pillar is to generate rigorous evidence on what works to promote women economic empowerment. Then the last part of our work is to use the evidence from our rigorous impact evaluation to shape policy and also to scale, for scaling up in bigger programs. Here today, I want to emphasize one point, that there is a big economic gain for us in Nigeria, big potential for economic gain in Nigeria if we are able to close gender gap, particularly in economic outcome in Nigeria. In Nigeria today, there is a big opportunity on the table to harness between $9.3 billion and $12.4 billion. If we are able to close gender gap in 3 sectors, one in agriculture, in entrepreneurship, and in wage employment. And this gap are shown in 3 ways. One, in agriculture, there is a big gap in agricultural productivity between men-managed farm and women-managed farm. This is about 30% in Nigeria. In entrepreneurship, There is a big gap in income taken from entrepreneurship work in Nigeria between men-managed businesses and women-managed businesses. In Nigeria, on average, there is about 66% earning gap between men-managed businesses and women-managed businesses. While in wage employment, we have about 22% gap in wages between women, female employee and male employee. And we know a couple of things, especially that are driving this gap. One, in agriculture, we know that crop choice is one of the factors driving the gap. Women tend to cultivate crops that are less lucrative compared to men. Use of inputs, women use fewer inputs, and also access to productive labors are driving gaps in agricultural productivity. While in entrepreneurship, women run small businesses. This is why they take this is contributing to the gaps that we see. The position in value chain is also one of the major contributors to the gaps that we see in Nigeria. So, much more than this gap, there are a number of factors that are amplifying this gap in Nigeria. One of those factors is poverty in Nigeria, which align with our theme for this year Gender and Inclusion Summit. In Nigeria, like many of us know, there are about 40% of Nigeria living in poverty. That is at the household level. But if you go deeper intra-household, women are poorer than men, especially during childbearing age for women. Much more, there are other constraints, for example, social norms and gender norms in Nigeria that also constrain women's economic empowerment in Nigeria, and such as aspiration as well, agency, and lower access to education. These are different factors that are constraining women's economic inclusion in Nigeria. But as much as we know some of these factors, we also know from our work a couple of evidence, a couple of interventions that have worked to actually promote women economic empowerment by addressing these challenges. And one of those programs is livelihood program, especially the multifaceted livelihood programs. They are very effective. We have seen them. We have evaluated a couple of them that I will share with us today, and our panel will also discuss around, that are very effective at supporting women economic inclusion. And in this type of livelihood program, they come in different phases, and they come with different shades. We've seen livelihood programs can contain capital injection, can contain community sensitization, can contain life skills, business skills, village savings and loan association, coaching and mentoring in different variation. And there are other variations that contains grants and those that do not contain grants. We've evaluated a couple of these and we have seen how they work. And we are here today to discuss some of this as well. And not that they have only worked, we will also tell you what level of impact have they been able to deliver to the beneficiaries, especially at the household level and to the women themselves in some of this program. But in general, from our work in Nigeria and in other countries, particularly in the Sahel region of Africa, we know that cash transfer increases household savings, it increases consumptions, it increases food security and earning at the household level. At the women level, our evidence have shown, we have robust evidence that shows that cash transfer support income generating activities for women, and also not only women that are beneficiaries of those cash transfer, it also supports local economy for women within the community where the beneficiaries of the cash transfer live. For example, women, because of the cash injection into those communities, other women also come up to start income generating activity to cater for the cash injection in their community. We have also seen cash transfer boosting gender attitude for women and perception of women around engaging in economic activity. Economic inclusion package, for example, livelihood programs, such as the one that we have evaluated as a team, we have seen them encouraging women to diversify towards off-farm activities, such as as well as boosting agricultural productivity and livestock productivity. Today, I will talk about 3 of such programs that we've evaluated and we have seen robust impact. Just to highlight that we use rigorous methodology to do evaluation of whatever program that we evaluate to generate evidence to know if they work or how they work. We usually use RCT to do our evaluation most of the time. And all these studies, 3 cases, we use RCT, randomized control trial, for the evaluation. I start with the first one. The first one here today is about our work on the Feed the Future Nigeria Livelihood Program in Nigeria. This happened in Kebbi State, and the Feed the Future program had a combination of cash transfer and livelihood package. What we saw here is that in a set of communities within 2 local governments where social norms are very constraining, where when asked that how many people within your community will speak bad about a woman that work, about 45% report that in their village, about 45% of the people in the village will speak badly about women that work, or that will speak badly about a husband that allow his wife to work. This gives us this kind of scenario. We did this evaluation here, and we saw a big impact of the cash plus livelihood program. And the cash plus livelihood program increases income generating activity, particularly for women, by 57%, while the livelihood only without the cash transfer addition increases to about 70%. This also showed a very significant spillover scenario where we saw households that didn't receive this benefit directly but live in the same community with the beneficiary household also having about 35% increase in activities around income generating work within the villages where the cash transfer was implemented. Then I will go to our recent experience on the National Cash Transfer Program that many of us might be aware of. Within the National Cash Transfer Program, and thankfully we have 2 people on the panel today from the World Bank side and also from the project implementation side. Within the livelihood cash transfer within the National Cash Transfer Program, there was a pilot program called Livelihood Program on the National Cash Transfer that we evaluated. The interim result...
Sorry, I think you'll have to wrap up in the next couple of minutes.
Yes. Yes, I will do that. So within this program, we compared the cash plus the cash, the household receiving just cash, with the household receiving the livelihood program. And we saw significant impact on household enterprise, household consumption. We also saw impacts on earning, food security, and increase in the number of household enterprises from this study. All of these are coming from the training on the study. We also did another one, which is the last one that I will talk about here on the National Cash Transfer Program. This is about allowing households. We had a variation of allowing households either to select the beneficiaries of a livelihood program themselves, or you allow a program to give the strict criteria of who the beneficiary should be and a household intervention, which encourages collaborative behaviors within household. These 2 impact evaluation also delivered great results in the interim. One, we saw increase in selection of young household member for the livelihoods. The results also shows boosts household income generating activities and earning, reduces economic cohesion for women. The household sensitization part increases collaborative behavior, especially joint decision making, reduces experience of depression, behavioral control, and IPV for women. It boosts household earning as well. These are great programs that were evaluated and showed significant impact, that we believe that could be scaled up. So in summary, the key takeaway here is that livelihood program can be very impactful with little tweak, with strong delivery structure, with simple tweak to targeting of beneficiary, and with bold engagement at the household level, and deliver impacts such as boosting income generating activities, earning, women economic empowerment in terms of reducing depression, reducing IPV at the household level. And we believe this type of study should be scaled up and should be also entrenched within our policy. We have a lot of policy work that we have done, some of them at our booths. You can also check our website within the World Bank website. Thank you so much, Vinay.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Ayo. I think very, very useful findings, and we have a very distinguished panel, and I would say all of them are practitioners, so I'm sure that these findings are useful. So I think I've been told, distinguished panel members, that we have exactly about 20 to 25 minutes to kind of conclude. So what I'll do is I'll ask each one of you a question, and if you take about 4 to 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes to kind of address that question. So let me come to you, Mr. Abdullahi, to start with. In what ways can safety net programs or safety net support, not only for individual women, but also for the broader community, impact them, and what are the mechanisms behind this? It will be great if you can make your remarks in about 4 to 5 minutes.
Well, social safety net programs basically are very powerful tools for empowering women and also communities. In fact, the presentation that just preceded this discussion had highlighted virtually all of that, basically around the fact that it provides direct financial support to women and also provides improved access to services, foster inclusive growth, ensuring that there's social cohesion as well as economic resilience across board. But often that program that will deliver this must be, for the effective delivery of this, it requires a combination of interventions and programs. And these interventions usually must be innovative and also be contextualized around the needs of the people and also what is required. But more importantly is the fact that the direct cash transfer will start with a targeting. Targeting basically allows you to, go to the poor and vulnerable and also provide them with the necessary support. It starts with an identification process, and we have the National Social Register, which identifies poor and vulnerable households across Nigeria. And the intervention, the presentation you just had was basically delivered to poor and vulnerable households that were identified and are in the National Social Register. The National Social Register basically has about 19 million households identified with 68 million individuals so far. And this also, comes from a geographic targeting as well as a community-based targeting processes, in which case the identification of the individuals are actually community-driven, and the support that eventually they get is also community-driven. The direct cash transfer itself, provides access to resources to women and also ensures that there's economic, opportunities are provided to them. They also gain autonomy and power through these processes. Besides that is the fact that it promotes gender and social inclusion. Gender support and social inclusion basically also improves household economic dynamics as well as household social norms. More importantly is the fact that household decision making is improved for those women that participate in this. It also improves social cohesion within the household as well as within the community. But again, beyond that, once the cash transfer goes into their hands, what it does is also improve, it grows the economy within that locality, improves business opportunities, purchasing powers, and then of course, continuously boosts economic growth. Capacity building that goes with all of these programs normally is for the women in terms of how to create, economic and social groups, associations, or thrifts, or income generating opportunities to create income generating opportunities. But more importantly is the fact that it also provides them with quick access to soft resources. Now the mechanisms are basically around cash transfer, in-kind support, capacity building processes, as well as using performance-based processes like the conditional cash transfer that we use in our own program to condition behavior and also improve performance around these interventions.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the point you made about targeting, leveraging data, and of course, really incentivizing behavior through conditional cash transfers. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullahi. Let me go to Mrs. Elizabeth now. Ma'am, I think the question to you is, considering the gender-specific challenges faced by Nigerian women, such as spousal death, divorce, what targeted policies can be implemented to improve their livelihoods and to increase their access to education and the labor markets? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The challenges faced by women across the country is not something that is new to us, so I'm not going to be repeating like a broken record what the challenges are. I'm going to try to talk about how we in budget and economic planning want to solve those challenges so that women in Nigeria can have access and the equity we talk about and equality can be attainable. I'm sure everybody in the room understands the role of national planning, the then national planning, now economic planning, that everything that we tend to do as a country has to go through a plan. We used to say in planning that if we don't plan for it, it can't be done. So we want to address the issue of challenges women face in Nigeria. The first point of call is to have it in a plan, because the government funds what they plan for. Individuals at household levels and private sector, you plan and then you provide the funding. So recently, or will I go backwards some years back, what we normally do is that we develop a national planning that covers everybody's interest. But evidence has shown that if you don't give specific attention to women and girl child, they'll be lost in a general plan. So we want to be looking at plan from the point of disaggregating the needs of men and women. Currently, we are reviewing the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. Somebody will say, but it's expiring next year. What is in the plan for 2025 that is not achieved could be transferred to the new plan. So we're reviewing the performance of our National Development Plan, and with the support of the World Bank Nigeria Gender Innovation Lab, we're able to have a workshop for this, inviting sectors that are in the national plan for a workshop, or more like a capacity building to open the eyes of those in charge of planning in different ministries on the need to have a sectorial plan that's gender sensitive. We'll find out that in the past, gender desk officers will speak to ourselves as gender desk officers, and the talking ends within us. And we can't be doing the same thing and expect different results. So we've moved a step further. In every MDA, ministry, department, and agency, there's a department called Planning, Research, and Statistics. That department is responsible for developing each ministry's plan. We decided to bring them on board, not only talking to the desk officers on gender, but talking to the people that develop the ministry's plan. We gave them some training, exposure on the need for us to have a disaggregated plan. We're making a ministry or department plan. You have to look at it from the disadvantage of women in some areas. In that way, they can be captured when they do the national plan. So we put that, and My minister and permanent secretary graciously approved it. So the plan we're going to be seeing going forward is not going to be the usual plan. And what is that advantage? Plan is just a document. Without implementation, it has nothing to offer. It means that come 2025, we will begin to make budget preparation using the plan. We are going to pay attention to those gaps that we identified, those gender gaps that we identify in the plan, and make conscious, intentional efforts to cover those gaps through provisions of funds and budget allocation that can address that. That is one of the ways we want to address the issue of gender inequality in Nigeria. The other way is that budget and economic planning, as the name implies, oversees both budget activities of the country and economic planning. Our budget process also needs to be gender sensitive. Before now, we have been training gender officers on how to prepare gender responsive budgeting. However, it has not really brought the kind of change we desire. And just 2 months ago, we started and said that for continuity and sustainability, we need to have a gender responsive budgeting strategy. That means that if I'm not there, any of us is not there, there will be a document that will guide budget preparation. That means you don't have to go advocating, lobbying, begging each time they want to prepare budget for it to be gender responsive. There will be a framework, and we intend to take it to the Federal Executive Council so that it becomes more like a policy. And we also want to take it to the NEC, National Economic Council, where my ministry is the secretariat. So it's easy for us to put it in the agenda and get the governors to assent to it. That way, even the states' governments will start using the framework to prepare the annual budget. Dear moderator, you will agree with me that what is not budgeted for by government, no matter the number of funds that is coming from well-wishers, development partners, and donors, it's not enough to make the kind of change we want in terms of the life of women. So the government has to take the lead. And we are doing everything within our power to take that lead through budgeting, through planning, through sensitization, because the ministry has the role to coordinate cross-cutting issues, and gender is cross-cutting across board. Through having that kind of discussion across different sectors and different establishments. That's our own bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. I really appreciate that, really putting in that focus on being gender responsive and customizing both the planning and budgeting for, I think, women is extremely critical, will go a long way in enhancing women's livelihoods. Let me now kind of come to Rinchit. Rinchit, I think the question to you is, in your view, what are the most effective strategies for policymakers to address the intersection of gender inequality and poverty? And how do you think these strategies can be taken to scale in Nigeria? And I hope, like other panelists, you'll be able to do it in 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So addressing the intersection of gender inequality and poverty, a multifaceted approach needs to be taken, and it has to be both systemic and individual needs. So I'm going to look at it from policy, like the other panelists just said. First, we have to have policies that makes these strategies implementable. And I'll give you an example, the Women's Economic Empowerment Policy. It was launched last year. It's the first policy that talks to women's economic issues, against tokenism, welfarism, talking about what true economic empowerment is, covers the issue of financial literacy, talks about women in agriculture, women in entrepreneurship. So then when we have this framework that is set up by government, then it's easy now to domesticate, implement, and then push the programming. Because if, like she said, anything that is not budgeted, then at the end of the day, it won't work. It won't be able to be captured. So if we do not have a society or a framework that is able, that organizations, CSOs, government, they're able to implement these strategies, then we're going to be, reinventing the wheel. And again, we talk about education, access to education for all, informal, formal education. And I'd like to state that we need to keep re-emphasizing that the rise of women is not the fall of men. Because invariantly, we just think that once a woman is empowered, she disempowers men. So, but then that's not what happens. And then women in leadership. We need to have that pipeline for women in leadership. So we look at upscaling, we look at mentoring. We're doing well in the aspect of mentoring, but then sponsorship. The old boys club is here if they need someone. So can we also have an old girls club? So we need to think about these strategies that would help upscale women in leadership. And then also the pipeline of women leaders, decision makers. They need to be on the table, not for us without us. So we need to be at the highest level of decision making. So we're able to bring up the perspective that is relatable to us. I'll stop here and wait for the next question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think wonderful points that you've put forth. I think multi-dimensional, multifaceted approach. Clearly, you had a huge response from the audience when you said rise of women does not mean fall of men. And of course, women leadership and policy is as important as the actual investment. So thank you so much. Let me now go to my colleague, Uba. So Uba, the question to you is, how can the Nigerian government and international organizations work together to ensure that social protection programs are inclusive and can effectively reach the most vulnerable women? Over to you, Uba.
Thanks, Nemo. Sorry, Vinny. It's kind of very difficult to sort of come after Rimchit. But I'll try to do my best to answer Vinny's question. So, first and foremost, I guess social protection really focuses on providing, interventions that target poor and vulnerable. But I would like to look at it into, break it down into like 4 buckets. So policy, programming, financing, and then the delivery. On the policy side, I guess most of the people on the stage have really talked about the policy. So you need adequate policy in place that is going to help you implement whatever programming you're coming up with, and then intentional, design of programs. So Mr. Kabir was talking about the program that targets poor and vulnerable through the social register, etc. So you want institutions that are strong and are able to deliver. And that brings us to the financing. And financing is important, and I'm very glad that my colleague from Budget and Planning actually made the point that if it's not budget, it's not sustainable. Because the financing, what we always encourage from the development partner side is local financing, let government take the lead, and whatever comes from the external side is always going to be a small fraction of what government is supposed to, lead. And then the last one is really on the delivery, right, of these social protection programs and interventions. And on that point, you really want delivery systems that are fit for purpose. Yes, you talk about technology and how technology can enhance things, but we've also seen cases where technology also excludes. So you want, delivery systems that are fit for purpose. That's one. One very good example is the cash transfer program that Kabir also was using as an example. When this cash transfer started, it started with an over-the-counter method for delivering cash. And that was important in actually reaching poor and vulnerable very quickly. And at the time, it was adequate. It was well, tracked. When the program needed to scale up, to reach more people, that needed to change. It needed to incorporate technology, the use of accounts, the use of wallets, and a different monitoring and evaluation system to make that effective. So you want delivery systems that are agile, flexible, built on robust digital public infrastructure so that those sort of pieces can plug and play and actually give birth to that inclusive and adequately delivered social protection intervention. Back to you, Vinny.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Uba. And I think I'm really glad to see the convergence in terms of the views across all the panel members. And Uba, I think one is the framework. I really like the framework, and I think that's something which everyone alluded to, the policies, the programs, but the financing and the delivery focus on all aspects of ensuring focus on women. But I also like what you spoke about, the being agile and being flexible in delivery. I think that's very, very critical to get the programming and the implementation right. So I think on that note, unfortunately, we don't have any more time left. I've been told that we should have closed by 4:20. I kind of bargained and got 10 minutes more. But let me take this opportunity to thank each one of you. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful, disciplined panel. All of you stuck to the timing. Very rarely it happens, so thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for being patient. And last but not the least, let me do my job. I've been forced to read this, so I'll read this. Dear moderator, please announce that PIC, which is the host, so let me say the host of the Gender and Inclusion Summit, appreciates feedback from all participants. Please use the QR code or go to the feedback stand where the research assistants can support them or can use the digital screens along the foyer. So organizers have done my job. So thank you everyone and have a wonderful rest of the evening.
Thank you very much, Tamer, Samad, Operation Manager, World Bank, and every other person on this panel.